Welcome back to Be Productive. We are here and we are talking about how we can stay productive and stay on top of everything we're doing by making sure that we are having third party reviews. So, we're going to talk about why those are so important. And to help me with this conversation, I have my friend Greg Schaffer with vCISO Services. I probably got that wrong, but you're here with us. You are an expert in the area of cybersecurity. So, talk to us a little bit about these third party reviews and why they're so important and some key aspects we need to know about them.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me back again. So when we talk about third-party vendor security reviews, first of all, we need to understand from a high perspective the what and the why of why we're doing it. And there's been a lot of push to move stuff from our organization. Like if you go back about 10, 20 years, typically we had all of the information within a data center within a company, and then we had a firewall that protected that from the internet. And then things started to move to the cloud. Like Office 365 is a very well-known cloud product. But when we increasingly rely upon the cloud for those sorts of services, we increase our what we call an attack surface. In other words, there are other places where the criminals can try to attack to get our confidential information. And a lot of these services, like for example, a lot of small and mid-sized businesses probably, this isn't an endorsement, but just a fact of life, that they'll use something like QuickBooks, for example. So they have their financial information out there. Well, that's increased your attack surface now that your financial information is somewhere else than your organization.
Mhm.
So the goal here is to identify any information security gaps from using a third party and then addressing those gaps. And again, this is probably more common than businesses will think. I mean, think about it. If you think about your business, just make a list. And this is one of the first things that we advise businesses to do. Make a list of all of the third party providers you're using, and then make a list of what you're using them for. And case in point, not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, roughly, there was a Bank of America had a breach with 57,000 records. Okay. And those 57,000 records, that breach actually occurred because of a third party in a smaller business. And so you need to consider the risk of that third party and assess it appropriately because, you know, and not all third parties, though, are going to be equal. If you have a lawn service, for example, there's someone out right now doing a little bit of leaf blowing outside my window. If you have a lawn service, then you probably don't need to do that much third-party risk management against them because they probably don't have much, if any, access to your confidential information. But something again like an organization that handles your financials, you definitely want to make sure that you examine their
Mhm.
security controls.
Right. Because again, when you're running a company, as the leader, the buck stops with you. So, I would imagine there is a little bit of give and take because as a leader, it's your responsibility, but then again, that's why you hire these third parties. So how does having the third party, how does that change some of the responsibilities of the organization's leadership?
Well, one of the biggest risks is a misconception that just because we hire a third party, that all of a sudden our responsibility of maintaining the security of that data is now not ours anymore. And that's completely false. You never, ever, ever lose responsibility of making sure that your information is secure. You just have another thing now you got to be concerned about, and that is the security of the other provider. And we provide security by implementing what we call controls. Now, some controls are things that they do. Some are things that you need to do. Like, for example, you have a system out there that your employees log into. That's great, and they keep it secure. But you have to make sure that the folks that are able to log in there, that they're authorized to do so and that the list is current. And what I mean by that is that if you have somebody who leaves the organization, but you forget to tell your cloud service provider that they've left, and then that account is used for a breach, well, that's not their fault. That
Mhm.
fault is on you. And this can get to be a little bit confusing about who is responsible for what and what some standards have. Like, for example, we've talked about PCI before a little bit. They have what they call a responsibility matrix, and it is as simple as it sounds. You have all of these requirements to meet that regulation, but both the vendor and you as the customer agree upon who is responsible for each one of those controls. And sometimes it's a dual responsibility. Now, that can be a little bit complex, but in the end of the day, what you're trying to do is to ensure that everybody is on the same page. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do, and without there being any sort of gaps in that process.
Yeah. So, when we're looking at bringing on these third parties, what are some of the common pitfalls that we need to be thinking about when we are assessing if their platform is going to be the best platform for us?
You should always look at their third-party audits. Just about every large company out there, and many of the medium-sized companies, some of the smaller ones as well too, will have some sort of a third-party attestation of the security, because it doesn't make any sense. You can't go in yourself and do an information security audit on their organization. It's not practical because of time-wise. You probably don't have the skill set for it. You probably don't have the desire for it. And that's why we have these organizations that actually conduct these audits. So ask a third-party service provider, can I see your SOC 2 report? And then read it. Like, again, we talked about Office 365. Microsoft will gladly provide you with they call it a SOC 2 report. It'll explain what it is that they're providing you, who looked over the system, what the result of that audit was, and then it has a lot of detail as to what they actually did. It's your responsibility to make sure that those audits have been done. And if there were any exceptions to that audit, that the company, like a Microsoft, has addressed them correctly. And plus, within those reports too, are usually some sections, like in the SOC 2, it talks about something called complementary user entity controls. These are things that you as an organization are responsible to do to make sure that their controls are working. That was the example that I gave beforehand with regards to the user. So again, understanding the shared responsibility when using third parties, and understanding your responsibility to ensure that they're doing what they say they're going to do, are the key aspects to securely using third-party service providers.
And I think we need to do a better job of understanding that these third parties, even though they're called third parties, they're really an extension of us. They're a part of our team. And so we really have to communicate well. And again, we really have to do our due diligence, because we can only be as strong as the entire unit is. So this is why I think it's so important that we're sharing these and that organizations work with an expert like you. So where can people find you? Share with us, where is your website and the best way for people to reach out to you?
The website is vcisoservices.com. So VCISO services.com. And on there, we've got a lot of resources for small and mid-sized businesses, not only what we do, how we could help, but also in our blog section, we got a link to our book for security for small and mid-sized businesses. Now, for me, you can reach out to me. Probably the easiest way is on LinkedIn. So long as you're not trying to sell me anything, I usually connect with everybody. Would love to talk to you there. I'm pretty active on there, and hey, it could be like free advice right there, because I'm always answering questions for small and mid-sized businesses. So
Fantastic. Well, Greg, thanks so much for sharing your expertise with us today. And for all of you that are watching, remember, we cannot achieve success on our own. It's a team effort. And when you bring in your third parties, they are going to be part of your team. So make sure you are doing your due diligence. Make sure you are asking the right questions, because we want to make sure that we are delivering value and service at the highest level possible, because that is how we all stay productive. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this short break.